All right. Hello and welcome everyone to another Chat and Learn here with Power to Fly. My name is Mariella Marie, and as always, super excited to roll into this next hour with you all. It's Monday, so I really want to make sure that we get this Chat and Learn kicked off in style. We already got folks asking if they can rewatch this video that we haven't even started yet, so I know that you all are eager to learn as with respects to the theme of today's conversation. But before we roll into our setting up the stage and getting into the beautiful questions that you all have submitted previous to this conversation, just want to go over some housekeeping to make sure that we're all comfortable and confident in this next hour. So again, we'd love for you to participate. You could be doing anything else with your time, but you're deciding to be with us. So you can participate in a number of ways. You can turn your cameras on if you feel called to do so. You're also welcome to hop off mute if you'd like to share, any reflections or share your own tips and tricks. Just let me know that you'd like to hop off mute by raising your emoji hand or writing in the public chat. That will let me know that you'd like to be added to the queue, and I will give you the rights to do so when the time comes for folks to hop off mute. Now, if you do hop off mute, you will be featured in our live recording as this is being recorded. And if you signed up for this conversation, be looking out for a rewatch email that will include a link to this recorded chat, along with any resources that our guest speaker might bring up throughout the hour so that you can easily access them there. And now, if anyone has any sensitive information and you prefer to be kept anonymous, please find me in the chat box under Mariella Marie. You can write to me privately there, and I will raise your question or your reflection and keep you anonymous to our guest speaker and everyone else who's live with us here. And the last thing I'll say is we'd love for you to follow Power to Fly on socials and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can keep up with all the great chats we've got in store. Now, this is the first time you're joining a chat where I'm moderating. I'll just take a brief moment to introduce myself. Thank you for being here. Thanks for kicking off the week with me and our guest speaker, Olivia, who is looks like she's doing some social media work right now, letting her folks know that she's here live. Thank you so much,
So they can
Olivia.
come join us.
Yes, come and join us. So I love speaking about the importance of emotional intelligence at home, at work, and at play. So I might bring some of my reflections to that point. If anyone's interested in philosophizing with me on how to practice emotional intelligence, feel free to do so. I'd love to hear from you all. Otherwise, feel free to follow the project that I'm working on that is called the Positive Force Team. Again, you can go to thepositiveforceteam.org. You can sign up for my newsletter, or I'm happy to connect on LinkedIn. In just a few minutes, I'm going to invite everyone to connect in the chat. So you can drop your LinkedIn's or whatever preferred way of networking you have. I'll give you all that opportunity in just a few moments so that we can really try to build meaningful connections here in the hour. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to pass the mic to our guest speaker, Olivia, who's originally from Chile. I'm calling from Argentina, so we are long lost neighbors, and she's currently in New Hampshire right now. So Olivia, for those who didn't join the previous chat, just let us know a little bit about yourself and what you're excited to share with us today.
Quite frankly, I'm not even going to go through the whole resume of things, but long story short, I am a staunch advocate of putting more money in the pockets of women, whether that's through your career, through your business, through figuring out how to grow your money. The truth of the matter is that when women in particular, men too, sure, but women in particular, when we make more money, we make this world a better place. So long story short, I have probably 4 or 5 companies at this point that really just focus on helping women make more money. And that's really the gist of it. Let's put it that way.
I love it. I love it. What a beautiful, concise, and empowering introduction. So I'm sure we're going to learn more about you as you respond to these awesome questions that folks have submitted previous to this conversation. But before we jump into those questions, I would love for you to set the stage for us. Can you go over the main takeaways for today's conversation?
Yes. So in essence, what we're really going to focus in on is making sure that you understand that really the biggest component, if you will, of our achieving our goals and ambitions comes down to not the tactical tools that you can use, not through the strategies, but really it comes down to a decision that you make in here and what you want to achieve. Now, it has a lot to do with growth mindset, but I really don't like to position it as growth mindset. I really think that it has to come more from a vantage point of decision so that you can really just decide, I'm going to be the person, the woman, the man who is here to achieve things on my terms. And as much as indeed I totally understand and believe and know that the right tools and techniques can help you get further, when it comes down to it, the reason why you're not where you want to be already, the reason why you're not filthy rich, the reason why you haven't started that company or been promoted throughout that career or in the kind of position that you want to be, has a lot more to do with you stalling, with you saying, you know what, I'm going to push this off a little bit because I'm too busy doing this or I'm too busy doing that, then it actually has to do with the existing conditions of my boss glass ceiling that I've reached in my company. There's always alternatives. And that's what we're really here to drive in today, is how do you capitalize on that mindset side of things?
Awesome. Awesome. All right. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now so I can pull up these questions that folks have submitted previous to the conversation here today. And I just want to say, folks, if you hear your question come up, let us know that you're here live with us. We just want to make sure that we get your question answered. And then also, if anything comes to mind throughout this hour, again, we want to hear from you. So feel free to drop those questions in the chat. And if anyone would like to hop off mute, just give me a cue by raising your emoji hand. If you don't know how to raise your emoji hand, just drop in the chat box. Let me know that you'd like to be added to the queue to hop off mute. All right, so Olivia, let's start with this first question here. Could you share stories of what you said no to that led you to level up your life, do work that you love, and realize you can be well rewarded for your contribution?
Oh, yes, actually. It was a tricky one. My first, probably the first time that I really started succeeding. Oh gosh, it kind of goes back quite a way back. I had this really cushy, fancy job at Dartmouth College. It was like a corner suite office, really nice job, setting everybody's salaries, recommending ranges, and all those things. And one day I was reading an article with regards to the gender wage gap, which quite frankly made me really mad because I was setting people's salaries. I was the compensation expert. And I was decidedly being very much unbiased when it came down to gender or ethnic status or all of those like factors that people think about when we talk about the gender wage gap. So I actually set out to prove that there was no gender wage gap. I was like, I'm being completely impartial to gender, race, and any other intricacy. So there's no such thing as a gap. I set out to prove that there was no gap. And I did. I went out, started looking at the thousands of salaries that I'd recommended to hiring managers. And, I wanted to look and see the evidence. I looked at men, I looked at women. And what was happening was when I saw that, when I'd recommended a salary range for a woman relative to a guy, indeed there was a difference. The salary range, say if I'd recommended something from 0 to 100, if I'd recommended a salary range for a woman, she'd usually be hired hovering around the 25th percentile. And if it was for a guy, he was hovering around the 50th percentile. So I'm like, whoa, what gives? There's a gap. But why, right? So I kind of went down that rabbit hole and not only looked at the data that I'd recommended, but looked at other companies and connected with other experts in compensation. I was like, are you guys seeing this? And everybody was like, yeah, what's going on? So we started talking to the hiring managers and started talking to the actual incumbents, the people who were hired, the women that were hired. And really when it came down to it, it wasn't that there weren't enough government regulations or that the company didn't want to pay fairly as it was. But really the big culprit as to why women were not earning what they deserve was they didn't actually know what they were worth. And even if they did, they didn't know how to advocate for it. So at this point I was like, whoa, this is crazy. And I was at this juncture myself too. Just, you know how like life gives you all these crazy parallels where you're like, okay, do I like, why am I researching this? Right? I was actually being underpaid, and I got an offer while I was doing this research to do like my job that I was currently doing it for multiple international organizations, maybe twice as much. Or I had this like information, this gold right here where I was like, gosh, I can't let this sit here. Like this is how we close the gender wage gap. Just help women figure out what they're worth and how to advocate it. And then we go. So that big decision right there, that story, I said no to that six-figure job that I could work from anywhere in the world, do my thing on my terms. I could just be on autopilot, and led me to level up to where I'm now, which I've got four different companies. One's based out of the Philippines. I have a massive impact on thousands of women. I live, drive, and exist in my purpose, making boatloads of money, and I get to help women everywhere. So like, there are those junctures, and I know that every single one of you has either faced them at this point, or you will face them at some point. And I'm going to tell you, please trust your gut, because it is always, always correct.
I love the emphasis on trusting your gut. If I could just reflect a little bit on emotional intelligence, I think that if we could all strengthen, that intuitive instinct that we all have, and for some reason we have forgotten how to listen to that. In my opinion, it's based on what social norms dictate what success is, and we have to start to figure out how to redefine success and tap into our intuition. So thank you for highlighting that. Trust your gut, but of course it's harder said than done. So definitely want to echo that as well. Let's move on to the next question here. Why is it important to start working on our mindsets when it comes to career advancement?
Because if not, you're not really advancing. You're just moving through the motions. Do you see what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
If you don't identify like where you want to go with your career, if you don't understand what it looks like for you to be successful, and it's an internal game, it never was. How many billionaires? Literally, I was just this past weekend with some insanely wealthy people in New York City, like crazy, flying around private jets, all of those fancy things. And I could not wait to get back home to New Hampshire, because I was like, gosh, these people are so freaking miserable. It's all about what they're wearing, what designer, not all of them. Some of them are genius. Some of them are incredible people. But if you're focusing on career advancement, but not actually on what your heart, call it your mindset, is really aiming for, you're screwed. Not the money, and all the money in the world is not what is going to make you successful. It's just a catalyst to get you towards your Everest. But if you end up in Everest when you really wanted to end up in Patagonia or like sandy, gorgeous beaches, you're not going to be happy.
I love that reference. Yes, I plan to come here to Patagonia. So I love that, thinking
Emotional of my intelligence right there.
And actually we have some comments here. Ebony's writing in the chat, shift your mindset. Mindset is everything. Ebony also writes, I must identify where I want to go in my career. And actually that is you teed me up perfectly for this next question. I'm wondering if you actually submitted this question, Ebony. It reads, how can we identify our career purpose or know we are on the right track?
Oh, such a good question. You see, when it comes down to your career and your purpose, you always have a purpose. There's always, I have helped tens of thousands of women at this point, and some men too, let's be honest. And whenever they come and say like, no, I could just do any job, I could just do anything, I'm like, you can just do anything. But that glow, right, that shiny object syndrome fades off pretty quickly if you don't absolutely live and breathe and absolutely love what you're doing. So when it comes down to your career and trying to figure out what this purpose is, what you really want to focus in on is, okay, let's look back at my trajectory so far. What does that look like? Because hindsight is always 2020. You've had struggles throughout your life, throughout your career, that have brought you to this point and have equipped you not only to be a leader in whatever realm or field this might mean to you, but it's also equipped you with a level of resilience to do something very unique that nobody else can do. So if you're trying to figure out your career and your purpose, on one end, we're actually going to have we've just opened up the wait list for the Her Money School app, and there's going to be a free challenge there that actually helps you figure out your career purpose. Like, how do you figure out what you should be doing? But working at it from the emotional intelligence side of things, like the IQ, EQ here, where it's like, okay, what drives me? What am I passionate about? More so than like, what school should I go to? What degrees? What additional skills? And this is something that I caution women about a lot. Stop chasing skills. Quite frankly, whoever you believe your creator is, was, or whatever put you on this earth, you would not be endowed with that dream and with that passion if you weren't also endowed with everything you need to make it happen. I was not endowed with a dream to be a professional football player because I really can't make it happen. So your dream, like that thing that has been perhaps nagging at you for decades, is there for a reason, and you should start listening.
I love this. I'm seeing in the chat that empathy is my superpower. I wish more people had that superpower. Thank you for dropping that in the chat. I've got some direct messages, private messages saying that this definitely resonates right now. I also, everyone, I dropped a link to what Olivia just mentioned. And actually, Olivia, this would be a great time. I know I'm going to drop it a little after too when we finish the conversation, but can you let us know, why you started this money school? We hear, how enthusiastic you are and how you are living in your purpose. Let us know a little bit about, why you started this, and then let us know, how we can be involved. The link is also in the chat, everyone.
Yes, totally. And I hope you guys don't mind, like the kids have a vacation day today. It's school in service. So like the neighborhood kids all congregate on this hill that we have on our property to slide. So you're going to hear kids barking, all those things. I hope you don't mind. I'm sure I'm not the only parent here. But yes, Her Money School is actually kind of come from all the different businesses in which my team and I have been involved over the years. So like I started with salary coaching for women quite some time ago, and then we helped quite a few women make money through their careers. And then I figured out, well, why would we be limiting ourselves to one revenue stream when every single one of us is sitting on a gold mine between our ears? Like, why just make money through that route when you can build revenue streams that are perhaps different, but you can put them on autopilot as well while you have your career, so you don't have to rely on your career if you don't want to. So Her Money School is probably the culmination of not only me teaching women how to make money, but me deciding for myself that I wanted to have more revenue streams. And ladies, at any given point in time, right now I have 12 different revenue streams, and most of them are autopilot. So that's where I said, this is how we close the gap. It's teaching women not how to, put together the perfect resume. But if you want that, like, I can help you with that. I'm actually supposedly one of the top resume experts, one of the top LinkedIn experts, and recently one of the top purpose experts, according to all of these, like recruiter.com, USA Today, all those things. But that crap doesn't matter. What really matters is that you understand that you're sitting on a gold mine, and that gold mine can make you money. So Her Money School is relaunching, because we had it as a course. We have a huge community, but we're relaunching it in a couple of weeks as an app. And it's going to be app only, because in today's day and age, quite frankly, courses, online courses, only 9 out of 100 people actually finish a course all in. So the goal is to say, okay, what are the tools that women need to make money? And what are the tracks that they might be on? So you're either going to be on your career track, career path, entrepreneurship path, or money mindset path. And we also have an investment path that's coming down further down the line, but we're lining up the experts for that. So anyhow, the app is totally free, but it's by invitation only. We only want very ambitious women in there. So that's, if you want to get on the wait list, we're only going to be releasing 100 tickets at a time. And we already have a few thousand ladies on it. So get your name on so you can get the app as soon as the tickets become available.
I love that. Well, congratulations. And so again, I'll drop the link in the chat a little later, just in case we have some folks joining now and didn't get access to that link. And for those who are listening, can you just shout out the website so they can, take note of that if they don't have access to the chat, Olivia?
It's hermoneyschool.com. What is the link? As in, like, where to find it? Oh, I think you froze. Do you guys see Mariella freeze? Mariella, did you freeze? Don't freeze on us.
Hi there. It looks like my internet froze a little bit, or I wasn't. Okay, perfect. I'm back.
All right, sorry. What was it that you said? I couldn't hear you. I couldn't finish hearing you.
I was saying, can you verbally say the website so for folks who don't have access to the chat, if they might be rewatching this?
hermoneyschool.com. It's free.
Perfect.
Yeah, there's going to be some paid things there, but like if you want to figure out your career purpose, you want to figure out your $1 million idea, you want to get hold of like those money monsters that are in our heads plaguing us and limiting us from actually getting paid what we deserve, all of that's going to be free. And quite frankly, if you're not earning already what you know that you want to be earning, you're probably going to sit quite well in one of those tracks. So you really have nothing to lose and everything. A shitload of money. Pardon my French again.
So we have someone who's written in the chat. Kiana writes, I have an interview shortly. This is very helpful. So how can we send Kiana off in style, and anyone else who has an upcoming interview? So I feel like, that moment of, negotiating your salary and making sure you're connected with your purpose and all that. Of course, it's really important, but I would love to hear what Olivia has to say to Kiana and anyone else who an interview shortly.
Yes. So when it comes down to interviewing and you get that dreaded conversation, that salary conversation, right, where they ask you, so what are your salary requirements? Please write this down. I'm going to say it very slowly so that you can take a note and write it down. Okay? What you're going to say is, thank you so much for that question. I really appreciate it. You see, I was actually wondering myself how a company like yours, relative to the position in question, would value someone like me. Could you help me gain some insights regarding this? Boom.
I love that.
You never give a number first. Never give a number first. Even if you know exactly what you're worth. Don't give your power away.
I love that. I love that. I love that. Okay, so yes, folks are wanting to hop off mute. Just give me 1 second. I'm going to roll through some more previously submitted questions. Olivia is on one right now, so I'm going to keep her here. But if you do want to be added to the queue, just go ahead and continue to drop in the chat, and we will queue you up here in just a few moments. So let's move on to this next question here. How can we identify healthy, achievable goals that keep us motivated?
See, people think that you lose motivation because you're lazy. Oh no. There we go. Sorry, I think the recording had stopped. I was like, did we stop? So
no, we're on still.
So we don't lose motivation because our goals aren't healthy or they're not ambitious enough. Like we don't get lazy. We lose steam because we're not inspired by these goals. If you try to pursue a management role, even if it's a Fortune 100 company, but yet your goal, your dream, your purpose in life was always to become a seamstress. It doesn't matter if you become the CEO of the Fortune 1 company, like the top person out there. You are going to be as miserable as heck. So it's really not about finding healthy, achievable goals. The only reason why we stall and not achieve what we want to be achieving is because we're not motivated, we're not driven, we're not passionate about what we're talking about. Like, you can hear my voice. I am pretty freaking passionate about this. I wake up like this. Ask anyone on my team. It's annoying as heck for my husband and for my family, because when I'm on fire, when I'm talking about women and money, I'm on. And I know I don't need any external motivation for this. And I know that every single one of you in here has that same exact flame inside of you. It's just that perhaps you're not nurturing it. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So how can someone nurture it? Because maybe I'm sure this is ringing a lot of bells, antennas are going up. Life is moving at a super fast pace. So maybe people put that, a second, third, fourth thing to do, like nurturing this. How can someone start to nurture that right now so that they can know their worth?
Well, the first step is stop ignoring that you have very big, hairy, ambitious goals. Like, everyone and everything around you has told you, like, who do you think you are to be a multimillionaire? Who do you think you are to have a private jet? So stop ignoring and finally admit to yourself that you have this huge ambition, this very, very big dream. You don't have to admit it to anybody else. But you know what you do need to do is dwell in it. Dwell in that dream. Imagine yourself on that private jet. Imagine yourself being with all that money, and like, be grateful for it. Be grateful for what has not yet happened. Because here's the thing here, and this is like a very big, and it might be like a kind of complex topic to understand, but I know that after our conversation here, you're going to grasp this. You see, we are trained to be grateful for the past, grateful for everything that we have in our lives, and that we should be content and happy, right? And that's all well and good. But what we're not trained in is to be just as grateful for those big ambitions and big dreams that we have for the future. Because being only concerned with looking back and saying, I'm grateful for all of that, keeps us in this guilt loop where it's like, I'm just gonna like be grateful for anything that comes. And that doesn't allow you to really connect with all of these like tiny little clues that the universe is throwing at you with regards to this big, huge, ambitious future that is lined up for you, right? So if you can have as much gratitude for the future and for those dreams that you've been endowed with, and be like, wow, that's pretty freaking cool that I want an airplane. That's insane. And this goes for any goal in life, whether it's like your weight or, relationship goals. Just be like, damn, a plane? Me? That's amazing. I can't wait. I'm going to go see Mariella in Patagonia in my private jumbo jet. That's going to be really fun. And own it and love it. And stop feeling guilty about it. Stop feeling ashamed of those big, hairy, ambitious dreams you have.
I love that. Big, hairy, ambitious. So I see we've got some things coming up in the chat. I'm going to flag that in just a moment. But Olivia, speaking of this guilt loop that you mentioned before, I think this question kind of wants to crack that open a little more. So this question reads, how can we overcome the negative thoughts attached to having big ambitions?
Mm-hmm. Perfect question. You see, the reason why we have that negative thought pattern relative to these big ambitions. So everybody right here, like right as we speak, I want you to please bring up that big thought for yourself. If you want to share in the comments, that's awesome. If not, if it's too hairy and big and embarrassing yet, like just still step into it for a second. Own it. I want you to really think about it. What does that big, huge, hairy, ambitious goal look like? For me, it's to close the gender money gap. And I've kind of come to the point where I freely and openly admit it, because you could tell me whatever you want to tell me that like that's ridiculous. How's that gonna happen? I'm like, it's gonna happen in my lifetime, period. Whether it actually happens or not is irrelevant. I'm thrilled at the idea that it's going to happen, right? So think about your big, hairy, ambitious goal. I call them BHAGs for short. Your big, hairy, ambitious goal. And right now, you're embarrassed to share it. You're embarrassed to bring it out because there's this like negative cloud that tells you it's too big. Who do you think you are? Right? And it probably brings back memories of either your loved ones, like your partner, your husband or wife, or even bosses bringing you down with their own insecurities that made you feel like you're just not good enough. But whenever you feel that, I really want you to do two things. First, think about all of those women who left a legacy in generations past, a legacy for you to be here today that you would not be doing. Things like having a credit card, being able to vote. All of the things that you now take for granted were once ridiculed. And someone at some point did not believe that women, and in particular women, but men as well, right? We can even ascribe this to airplanes. At some point in time, those brothers creating an airplane, thinking that we could fly, were ridiculed. So first thing that I want you to do is think of that. Think of those women. And then I want you to think about your legacy. 3, 4, 5 generations to come. How is the world going to be worse off because you chose to listen to those people who had no clue what you were capable of achieving? No clue about how much potential is inside of you. And see if you don't act from that place. It's your legacy, and you're giving it up because you chose to listen to that art teacher from middle school. Like, how ridiculous is that? Please.
I feel like we need to get you on some stages. How do we make that happen?
Bring it
I want
on!
to see you in person. I want to see you in person. I can just feel your energy. You're super passionate about this, and I appreciate the work that you're doing to close the pay gap. Yes, we need you. We need you. Okay, so let's move on to this next question here. How do you move up the ladder if your career has been stagnant for a while?
Take the elevator. Stop doing what everybody else is telling you to do. The reason why there's like this huge clogging up that career ladder is because you're trying to do it the way that everybody told you you had to do it. Instead of realizing what nobody has realized is that there's an elevator that will take you to that ivory tower. Stop listening to others. Start listening to yourself. You will find the path of least resistance. And I promise you that pressing of the button on the elevator is super freaking easy.
So now, of course, I know you've probably been tuned into the media and seeing, all of this so-called great resignation happening. People are clearly not happy with where they are. Lots of people are not happy where they are, so they're deciding to leave or pivot. So this question kind of leans into that a little more. Can you share some tips on how to start navigating a new career plan?
Yeah. So, and I think that quite frankly, if I can share my thoughts on like the great resignation and where people are just letting go of their jobs, is like two things are happening primarily. Is first and foremost, the roles that are not being filled are those roles that don't have a true career progression that leads to purpose. So I mean, this is why you're going to see a lot of like restaurants are still needing help. A lot of like lower level entry positions are not being filled. And it's not as much that the pay is not there, it's just that the purpose is not there. If you don't feel like you are growing as a human being, what you're doing is going to feel worthless at any stage, right? So I think where I would say if you want to like navigate your career plan, what I would say is two different things. First and foremost, think about purpose. Think about growth of your soul. Because if you're not growing, you're truly dying. And this is why so many people are fleeing 9-to-5 jobs. They're fleeing like standard jobs, even if they have a lot of money, and are choosing to say like, you know what, I'm going to do Uber Eats instead. Because even if it pays less, it's on their terms and they have more control over where their life is headed. Some people say it's like control of the schedule. Like it doesn't matter what schedule you end up working if you're passionate about what you do. I wake up literally at 4 a.m. to do my work, to get my work done because I'm passionate about it. It has nothing to do with the schedule. So when you're navigating your thoughts into like, how do I pivot? That first thing is like, first and foremost, be absolutely certain and passionate about where you're headed into, because if not, again, that shiny object syndrome fades out. Willpower fades out. What stays is purpose and passion. And then second of all, the workforce is shifting. We no longer have that 9-to-5 white picket fence, 2-car garage dream that we had back during the Industrial Revolution. What the worldwide dream looks like now is more flexible. It's more about purpose and really understanding that life can just throw anything at you. And you want to be able to fend for yourself and your loved ones in a way that doesn't drain you. Like we don't want to be drained by life. These last couple of years with the pandemic have proven that to everybody. So if there's anything draining about what you do, it's a downhill batter. Like you're going down. So understand that, but also understand that you have a gold mine and don't just settle for like a job when you know that you could be making money multiple different ways.
I love that gold mine in between our ears. That's going to stick with me for a while. So I appreciate that analogy and the truth behind that. It's real. So let's say that folks have gotten off course as far as their goals are concerned. This question kind of rings towards that, how to bring that back into focus. So what are some key elements to keep in mind to regain control of our goals?
So when you feel lost, right, and this is also an exercise that we can do really quickly right now, is I want you to sit with yourself, focus for a moment, because I know most people here are likely multitasking. Let's admit it. So give me your attention for like 30 seconds. And let's really focus in on what you need to be controlling if you want to use those terms, right? I want you to think about really quickly what you hate about your daily routine, about your daily life, about all those things that you have to do for work. What do you hate? Do you hate pivot tables? Do you hate Excel? Do you hate your boss? Be honest with yourself. Like, use that big word. What do you hate? Because here's the thing, and the reason why I'm putting you into this like mode of hatred, what do you absolutely do not like? And if you could leave it, just ditch it, you would. You see, when you're dwelling in that place of like hate and what depletes your energy, you are at the clearest vantage point of seeing what you actually do want, what is going to absolutely energize you. So I want you to dwell in that, again, pardon my French, but dwell in the shit so that you can have absolutely clear what it looks like between night and day. And that's the easiest, simplest way that's always accessible to you. What you don't like and what you like is always accessible. You just need to be at the right vantage point so you can see with clarity.
I love that. And so do you recommend journaling, or how, what if someone doesn't even, what if that's not even clear, just from, all the noise that's happening with, the task, the day-to-day tasks, the things that, if people are parents and they're being pulled from one activity to the next, or, just life in general sometimes keeps things a little foggy. Do you have any tips on how to get more clarity on what is it that I don't like? What is it that I do like?
Well, and that's the perfect place to start. Is like, I'm stressed because there's so much on my plate. I'm stressed because I want to go skiing today, but yet I have to go work until 6 p.m. and I won't be able to ski. And quite frankly, I think the project that I'm doing is stupid. So like, start dwelling with that. Start like taking that negative thing down that path of like, spiral purposefully down that negativity path. Because that right there is exactly what's in front of you. Is showing you, is screaming at you. Depleted, I'm stressed, I'm anxious. And women don't talk about this enough. Those anxiety, like that anxiety level that oftentimes doesn't even let you sleep because your mind just is going and going and going and going and doesn't stop. That right there is what's depleting you. So dwell with it for a little bit. Sometimes for some people it's journaling. For some people it's meditating. For me, I love journaling and I write it all out. I've written the worst things about myself, about others, about people that I feel. But you know what I like to do after I write it all out? I burn it.
I was going to say that, burn it.
Burn, baby, burn. But the reason why I dwell on it and like why I write it out is not because to just write it and let it go into the ether. It's because I want to be in the shit so that I can understand clearly where I want to go. And for me, my clearest example was being in a situation where I was financially dependent of my husband. And I love my husband dearly. And I know that many of you are married, many not, but like, this is one of the reasons where I decided that I wanted financial independence, not only for myself, but for everybody out there. Because I love my husband, but in our early years, he was deployed in Iraq. He was in the military service, and during the Great Recession, I don't know if you remember where you were, but during the Great Recession, he was in Iraq. And I was dependent, on him. I had a job, I had a nice job, but the recession hit, I got laid off. And what ensued was me applying to 1,231 jobs. 1,231 jobs. I had an MBA, a really good East Coast education. And you know what happened one day? And I was still dependent on my husband, but there was nothing else. There was no safety net. He wasn't making that much money as a soldier. And like right then and there, it was taken, like that safety net that we had, like he couldn't do anything more for me other than what he was already doing. 1,231 rejections. I got 5 interviews, 0 job offers. And I clearly remember that moment where I was dwelling in the shit. Was when I was in the Louisville, Kentucky unemployment office, which I lined up for. You had to line up every 2 weeks. If you claimed unemployment, every 2 weeks I had to line up. And to claim a check, I lined up at 5 because the office opened at 7. I was like 4 blocks down the road at this point. And it was my turn. It was roughly around like 8:30 or 9. And I go up to the clerk with all the list of jobs that I'd applied for with my resume that had that, I'd gone to Tufts University, which is a good school in Boston, that I had my MBA and all of that stuff. And The clerk looks at me, looks at the job list, sees that I'd even been rejected twice from McDonald's that day. McDonald's rejected me twice that week. Looks at my list of 1,231 jobs because they kept track. If you wanted to check, they had to see that you'd been applying. And my resume. And he says, gee, I guess that expensive East Coast education didn't pay off, did it? I swear to you, I didn't make it out of the building. I collapsed hysterically, bawling. I was like, and here's where I'm gonna like just kind of, can I curse a little bit?
Go for it.
I was like, what the fuck is wrong? All I want to do is be a contributing factor in society. My dad had just died. My husband is deployed in Iraq. Every phone call, every knock on the door, I feel like they're going to come and tell me that he's not coming back. Why is the workforce fucking me over so much? I'll take a McDonald's job. I'll take anything. And yet it felt right then and there that the workforce was screaming at me saying, we don't want you. You are not worthy of the workforce. But it wasn't, if it weren't for that vantage point, I would not be able to have understood that it wasn't that the workforce was rejecting me. It was that the actual way of landing my dream job, the process to land a job, was fucked up. It actually doesn't work. It's not that the workforce was saying we don't want you. It's just that nobody who really mattered was actually seeing me. Like, I don't know, has it ever happened to anyone here where you've applied and applied and applied and nothing? And that's exactly it. It's because that online application portal, that resume thing, it just doesn't work. It never has. You see, and that's what I was able to figure out from that. And literally within a matter of weeks, I kid you not, once I had that moment of epiphany, landed my dream job in Washington, D.C., working at the Inter-American Development Bank, which is the equivalent of the World Bank for Latin America, managing projects and people in multiple countries, and then went on to land multiple other dream jobs. But because I had that moment of dwelling in so much pain, I could understand where I wanted to go. Do you see what I'm saying? You don't
Absolutely.
get resourceful until you feel that pain.
Thank you so much, Olivia, for sharing. And we've got folks in the chat box just, saying they are over the pain. They feel what you're saying. When the environment when people are balancing so many things on their plates, it's hard to think clearly. So clearly you are not alone in this. And thank you for opening up and sharing your story. I think that folks needed to hear that. Yeah, I think that folks need to hear that because sometimes, as they say, it's a full-time job to look for a job. And I think that it's great that you can bring these numbers up that you applied to, so many jobs and you got zero callbacks essentially, and how that was a portal opening up to show you what how to move into your dreams. So thank you for that.
Like, think of the contrast. McDonald's rejected me. Washington, D.C., one of the most coveted positions in Latin American international relations. Like, literally within a matter of weeks. It wasn't because I wasn't qualified. It's not because you don't already have the skills, tools, and talents. It's just that the way that you're going about it is wrong. This is what I'm telling you. Like, stop. If you're clogged up that career ladder, like, get off it. There's an elevator. You just need to figure it out and listen to yourself. And of course, there's going to be boatloads of tools in Her Money School that are going to help you walk through this process. So definitely join the wait list. But the truth of the matter is, if it's not working, it's because you're not trying to open a door. You're just banging your head against a wall. And the door is probably like 2 inches to the other side.
And this wall that was created mostly, by cisgendered white heterosexual men who were taught to do that and who did that in order to stay at the top, to just be quite frank.
Yeah.
So when we're beating our heads up against that kind of wall and we're hurting ourselves in the process, I love this, like, using that moment to transform, and open something else up that clearly you're here now. I'm dropping the link, y'all, again in the chat so that you can join the waitlist that she keeps bringing up. But I would love to move into this next question here, because it seems like you have, I know that in the beginning you said, you don't necessarily use the term growth mindset. This question, speaks to mindset specifically, and clearly after that moment, you know something shifted and you were able to be propelled into another direction. So this question reads: Can you give more detail to what growth mindset means, or however you want to term it?
You see, and I think what you alluded to just now about like how we ended up in this ingrained system that we have, and this actually just totally like undercovers, don't share this with anyone, but like I'm writing a book with Forbes that comes out in December, called Not Equal. And it's because in so many ways, as women, we've been trained and conditioned at this point that what we should be aiming for, like the gold standard, is to aim for equality. That we should aim to be equal to men and to what men have achieved, and that they are the gold standard. But see, from my vantage point, if we're always aiming to be equal to these guys right here, the best that we can do, which because we're the ones who are supposedly unequal or below them, the best that we can do is equality. And they're going to keep, they know they're the superior ones, right? Or at least they believe they are. So as long as they're here, they're clearly going up there. Like they know they're going to continue climbing. Nobody's limiting them. But if we're down here and we're looking at here, like the best that we can do is get up here. And then when they get up there, the best that we're going to think we can do is go up there. So I'm saying, you know what? Screw this concept of equality. Like I get it. There's a lot of feelings involved here that have been ingrained in us by generations and generations of victimization and feeling and going through shit. So if I can get you to stop focusing on equality and start realizing maybe we're not meant to be equal, but maybe we're actually meant to be better. Just putting it out there. You can call it different, but here's the truth. As long as you're being told that like you're not equal, that we should aim for equality, that we're the weaker sex, like you're not going to see that you can also look straight up, just as straight up as they can, and go far up into the stratosphere. So this is why I'm like, yeah, but growth mindset, the way that we've been trained to do this is like, okay, let's aim for equality. Let's aim to be just like men. I'm like, no. Like your ability to multitask and think about multiple different things at the same time, which all of those skills that are called the motherly skills, if you understood just how much of a superpower that is, how much money that can help you make so that you can accelerate your purpose, you will never, ever be focusing on being equal to men. You would be like, listen, you guys, if you want a handout, if you want me to like teach you how to crush it, I'll help you. But I mean, you're going to have to do an effort because I'm looking at you from my ivory tower. Just what I'm saying?
Yes, flip the script. I love it. And we need new stories. So I love that you are helping to fuel the story of, equity, I would say, instead of equality, because equality in this term, it does, it centers one demographic, and in this case, to be quite frank, it's the colonizers. It's the colonizer mentality, who are usually, like I said before, white heterosexual men. And so if that is our standard of success, or if that is our standard of how to, make things
We'll never
equal,
get
I
ahead.
think, yeah, I think you have a great point there. And so like equity is a big part of the work that and clearly it's a big part of the work that you're doing with making sure that you're bridging gaps. Financial equity can help solve so many problems, but I don't know, what is it that yes, I just like to ask Olivia, what is it that's keeping, human society, let's go from the workforce to speaking in, universal terms. What keeps us from financial equity? And with all the work that you're doing, you're writing books and you're talking to brilliant minds, what's keeping us stuck
As women or society in general? Like what are we talking
society in
about?
general? Yeah, financial equity for all, let's say. And yeah, you can answer that from whatever lens you'd like to answer that.
So I'd like to kind of answer that from the vantage point of women, because that's my expertise. And that's where I have the experience. You see, we've been trained to be thought and believe ourselves to be the lesser sex. We've been trained to be the humble ones, the supportive ones, the nurturers. And these are all traits that come naturally to us. But it's kind of a subservient role that we ourselves, like, listen, I'm not blaming men. And honestly, quite frankly, when people ask me if I'm a feminist, I'm like, actually, no, I'm a total realist. I think women have as much to blame in this equation as men do. We're all in this together. But we bought into the story that our role was like to be a nurturer, to stay back, and to be the caretakers at home from behind the scenes. When, if you think about it, when you think about a good king, ruler, a god or goddess, those are all traits that make the best of kings and queens and rulers. So they're absolutely necessary. Do you see what I'm saying?
Absolutely, absolutely. I love your perspective, and I think it's interesting to hear you dive deep, because I don't think that, maybe some people are thinking this way, but they don't speak in these terms. So I love that your work is actually able to fuel, and you're able to practice what you preach, essentially, because you're showing the either the erased story or the underheard or undertold, undersold story of the
Yeah.
empowered woman, and why she needs to be at the center, instead of marginalized. So I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Like, don't allow yourself to be marginalized.
All right, so we've got about 3 minutes left. I have dropped that link again in for the wait list. I wanted to someone asked, do you have a podcast or any place we can follow for insights? So how about we use these last couple
Yes.
minutes to share, again, anything about what you're currently working on, and then remind us how we can get in touch with you when we finish this conversation in a couple of minutes.
Totally. And I'm happy to stay after recording if you want for a few more minutes. I love what we're doing here. So, couple of things. Yes, I do have the Empower Her Pod. We have it on all the different, let me type it in here.
And I
Empower.
also want to remind folks, if you signed up for this chat, you will be getting a rewatch email, and Olivia will drop the links so you can easily access them there. So, but this podcast that she's speaking of, Empower Her Pod. So
Yeah, so this is
EMPOWHER for those who are listening.
And what we do in the Empower Pod, it's really not a podcast per se, but we release every Monday a new episode. And it's just meant to be like this pep talk, 10 minutes, sometimes it's 5 minutes long, where it's like helps you get your shit together on Monday morning so that you can kind of take it through the week. We have that. We've got, again, Her Money School is the big thing that's coming up. But you can always reach me on LinkedIn, reach out, and it might not be me who answers, it might be someone on my team. So if you're looking for anything particular, whether it's like career tools, resume scripts, any of those things, or how to make more money, how to pivot, start a business, how to work on your mindset, any of those things, please just reach out and someone on my team will help you.
Thank you. Thank you, Olivia. Okay, so final words, food for thought. If you've said a lot in this past hour, but what's one key thing you want people to take away from this hour-long conversation? And then, of course, I invite you all to rewatch it so you can take notes again. But Olivia, final words, please.
So, if not you, who? Imagine. I really want to guilt you into this. If you allow that dream to die with you, think about the millions of women you're going to fuck over because you were too much of a chicken to pursue your dream. Think about where you would be if you couldn't have a credit card right now, if you couldn't vote, if you couldn't work. And then tell me about you not pursuing your purpose.
Ooh, that is a fiery mic drop. I'm going to end it there because I don't think I can follow up with that. So Olivia, thank you so much for spending time and sharing your what's on your mind so candidly. I appreciate the transparency. Folks are also dropping in the chat that they appreciate your transparency. Definitely encourage you all to connect with Olivia. And again, thank you so much. Today is Monday, so maybe everyone should just go over to the Empower pod right now to just get fueled for the week.
We didn't. Yeah, you can find the replays from past episodes. Today we did not launch an episode because it's the launch of the wait list for Her Money
Love it.
School.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay, so this is great. You're working on so many things. Again, please connect with Olivia and her team. Thank you, Olivia, for spending time with us today. Thank you, everyone else, and good luck. Good luck to those of you who are interviewing as well now. Thanks for sharing that in the chat. All right, enjoy your week and be your best selves, everyone. Be authentic. Reach